hopefully this is recording. Let me just put this so you can see it full screen. Let's see here, bear with me. Okay. Sorry, I just recorded this. You won't believe this. I just recorded this, did a nice 20-25 minute lecture, felt pretty good about it, and then realized that it wasn't recording, which is a major pain in the butt. For those of you who've done online teaching before, that's your worst case scenario, when you do what you think is a pretty good lecture and then you go to hit stop and you find out that it didn't record. So hopefully this one will. So this is our final lecture and trying to put some things together, and definitely going to talk about your final project for this class. So let's get started here. So throughout this course we've kind of talked a lot about the old school approach to assessment versus the new standards-based approach to assessment. And you know, I guess it's not as simple as making it black and white, making it, you know, old was bad, good, new is good. But there's definitely things that we need to pay attention to if we're going to be meeting national standards and state standards, and being aware of what evaluators are looking for when they come watch us teach, so that we can get good evaluations ourselves as teachers and keep our jobs, basically. So when I think about, you know, those differences, I found this table that's in front of you, and it shows the traditional approach on the left and the standards-based approach on the right-hand side. And you know, there's lots of good things on this table, and it shows a lot of the differences between the way we were taught to assess 20 years ago versus the way that we should be approaching assessment today. And I think we've explained a lot of these throughout this course. Student learning should be central to the delivery of instruction, and assessments developed before the start of the instruction are key to developing that student learning. So we need to develop assessments that allow students to enjoy participation in the activity, and assessments that are formative and summative, that encourage and verify that learning. And those assessments, if we do that well, will allow us to make valid inferences about whether students have learned, and to point out areas where they still need help with in instruction. So there's some 3 or 4 interesting, or particularly interesting, bullet points in this table. Students are informed of criteria and expectations at the beginning of the unit or the beginning of the course. And I'm going to share with you a few paragraphs I have from this book that's in front of me. When they're providing us with proof of how powerful it can be to provide students with criteria, directions, and rubrics ahead of time. So, and I quote, "To illustrate the power of prior knowledge about grading, Lund and Shanklin in 2011 talked about a study of a teacher who was teaching badminton to 2 classes. And they called these classes Class A, the treatment class, and Class B, the control group. At the start of the study, the control class and the treatment class were about the same ability level, measured by some pre-tests looking at how many skill attempts they had and their skill level on these different strokes within badminton. After 3 days, the students in the treatment class were told that they were going to be held accountable for skill tests on serving, forehand, backhand, and participation in gameplay. They were given the directions and the cues for these skills, and the scores and the rubrics for the assessments that they were going to do at the end of the unit, as compared to the control class, who were not given that information. At the end of the unit, the assessment showed that students in both classes improved, with the lower skilled students in the treatment class showing the greatest gains. In fact, the lower skilled students in the treatment class became almost as proficient as the higher skilled students in the controlled class, which is interesting. So you would think that there were other factors at play here, but no, there weren't. The same teacher taught the exact same lessons in both classes. The only difference between the two classes was the knowledge that they would be made held accountable, and the information and the rubrics were provided to the treatment group ahead of time. These kind of results make it clear that assessment can be a powerful factor in student learning. So we said this before, that students perceive stuff as important if they're being assessed on it. So we've known in the field of health and physical education for a long time that several teachers feel that if their students do not possess a certain level of athletic ability, then they cannot be taught new skills. And this is related to some theories such as the achievement goal theory and task orientation theory. But there is this belief that if students are a lower skilled level, inherently they're just low skilled athletic ability, then they can't learn new skills. So we need to address that. And we believe in the field of health and physical education that assessments can enhance learning, and teachers should use assessments to determine what students have learned and these gaps in learning. And that in turn will help all students, regardless of ability level, improve their skills. Another interesting part on that table, let me go back to that table, was the bottom item on the bottom row. And in the past, we've often had teachers who kind of saw themselves as gatekeepers, and they wanted to make classes hard so students failed, and with the belief that if lots of students failed, then the class was very rigorous. Today we want more teachers to act like coaches who motivate students to learn and give lots of encouragement, lots of opportunities for them to learn. So you need to start thinking ourselves more as coaches, trying to help each kid improve and get better at the skills that we're teaching. As we progress towards the end of this course, I think it's important for us to think about ways that we can keep learning, that we can keep improving our teaching and assessment skills to better serve the students that we're teaching. We know that beginning teachers often struggle with developing assessments for their units. We know that assessments of new teachers show that evaluation and developing assessments is a weakness for new teachers. It's not something that we generally like to do. It's not a fun task. It's much more fun and immediately gratifying to develop good lesson plans and cool activities and drills than it is to develop assessments. But now we have to. Now we're in this age of the accountability movement that we have to develop assessments. And we know that's not easy for us. We know that research tells us that the best teaching occurs when teachers have a strong knowledge base for the content of their unit. So we teach best and we develop the best assessments for sports and activities that we know the best. For me, that would be soccer. For some of you, it might be basketball or volleyball or other sports. Teachers who are skilled in a sport or activity that they are teaching typically provide more tasks for the students. They know what's important for player success and hold their students accountable for learning those items. So the problem is then, what about the skills in sports that we're not familiar with? Does that mean that we're not providing good activities and assessments for those? To do this, I think we have to recognize a few things. And this fits under this umbrella title on this slide of the need to keep learning. I think that even though you've learned sports and skills and how to teach them throughout your undergraduate and graduate degrees, you're going to have to learn new sports and skills that you're going to teach that you've never played before, that you've never experienced before. I found that to be true myself. I never experienced pickleball or team handball or ultimate frisbee or lots of different sports and activities in my undergraduate career, but I ended up teaching them in K through 12 schools. So we have to recognize that there's new sports and activities out there that you're going to need to learn and play and teach and assess. And I personally find that exciting. We need to be very deliberate and intentional in acquiring extensive libraries of activities and drills and games and assessments as we move throughout our careers. For me, that was bookcases and filing cabinets full of photocopies and books. For you, it's probably more likely going to be bookmarks on your computer and electronic files on your computer. So collect these over time so that you have good resources to go through. Thirdly, you may want to, as you develop assessments, focus on tactics of games. And we know with models such as the tactical games model or teaching games for understanding that there's certain tactics that are inherent in different types of games, such as basketball and team handball. Even though they're completely different rules within those games, some of the tactics in terms of invading the other team's territory and scoring in a certain way are similar. So we can, if we focus on the tactics, we can develop assessments that we can use across multiple units. So as we talk about finishing this course and maybe implementing some of this into your own position, current position or future positions, I would encourage you to think big but start small, recognizing that assessment is not commonly used within our field, so whatever you do is probably going to be more than what the kids have experienced before. So start with just a few authentic assessments within your class. Start with some things that are different and then build on them over time till you get to the point where you have a really good assessment plan for your entire course or your entire unit. So that brings us to talking about the last two requirements for this course. There is one article review left, and this is not an article, it's a chapter, and you've seen this before in Module 2, but I want you to read it again because it contains information that you're going to want to use for your final project, which is on the next slide. So please write a reflection on this chapter and post it on Blackboard by the date that is stated on Blackboard. And then the grading policy / assessment plan is worth 10% of your final grade. Here I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm providing you with a scenario. The scenario is this. You have been invited to attend an interview for a high school physical education and health teacher next week, and you've been asked to bring with you a grading and assessment plan for a 9th grade 4-month-long team sports class. Please create that plan. And then on this slide I've listed some things you might include, but you're not limited to. So basically I want you to show with this document that you have an assessment and grading plan. Now the traditional grading assessment plan might just say 50% for attendance, 50% for dressing out. And that's it. I want a lot more than that. I want you to show me how you're breaking down 100%. Are you doing 4 units, a month long each? Are those 4 units equal? Are they 25% of the final grade each? And then how are you breaking up that 25% within each unit? How are you assessing within each of the 3 domains? Give me some examples of how you're assessing within each of the 3 domains. How are you going to grade on management issues, dressing out, participation? Are you using authentic assessments as described in this class, or are you using more traditional assessments? Are you doing formative and summative assessments? So this should be one Word document that you turned in that's several pages long, and honestly, I've left this very open-ended. I've not provided you with a template because I want to see what you can create. You've all produced some good work throughout this course, and I think by giving you this simple scenario with the general prompt to create a grading assessment plan, incorporating things that we've used throughout this course, I think you're going to come up with a good document that you might actually use if you ever do go on a high school health and PE interview. So spend some time on this. It doesn't need to be turned in until the date stated on Blackboard, and I'll be looking for evidence of critical thinking and evidence of application of stuff we've talked about throughout this course, and I look forward to reading them.